Ultimately, it's about students. It's about student success. My name is Patrick Tompkins, and I'm chair of the Chancellor's Faculty Advisory Committee. I should say at the start that this session is being live streamed, so unless you're Taylor Molly, no poetry. As chair of CFAC, I have served on the Reengineering Task Force, and I've also served on the Faculty Evaluation Work Group. And my colleagues will each introduce themselves and explain to you their roles. Briefly, what I want to say about faculty evaluation, because we want to leave most of the time for your questions and comments, is it has been an enlightening process for me, and I have been proud of two people or groups. And the first group that I'm proud of, and most proud of, really is faculty. You know, when you talk about faculty evaluation, you know, they're going to start looking at, let's change the way we're evaluating the way you do your job. That engendered some anxiety when we started, but we as faculty said, okay, we'll listen, we'll participate. And then the other group that I'm very proud of is the Virginia Community College System, because they did listen and they did allow us to participate. Let me turn it over to my colleague, Paul.
I'm Paul Weitzel, Eastern Shore Community College. I'm one of the actually original members of the discussion group looking at faculty evaluation going back about 3 years, which means that I'm responsible for a certain amount of this, so there's no escaping responsibility as you ask questions. So please feel free, and I actually look forward to those. So I'm a member of the Faculty Evaluation Work Group. I'm a member of CFAC, and also for Eastern Shore Community College itself. I'm part of the work group that's developing the Eastern Shore Community College Plan. So the pain that many of you are feeling and your work groups at your colleges are feeling as you're working through the evaluation, I share with you. So I really am looking forward to what you have to say, and I'll turn it over to my colleague, Frances.
Good morning. I'm Frances Lee, and I'm from Savannah Community College. I served on the 3-year work group. It was a long process. We did a lot of talking. We looked at a lot of different possibilities in this new faculty evaluation plan. I also serve on CFAC, on the Faculty Issues Committee, and been very much involved with the Germanna working through our plan, which is taken lots of hours with lots of faculty, administrators, human resource, business manager. I mean, we've had everyone involved in it. It's been quite a learning experience, I think, for all of us. And Vicki Taylor.
Good morning. I'm Vicki Taylor, and I'm from Dale Community College. I'm vice chair. You've got a lot of vice, so I get to be chair of it, of CFAC. I have not served on this work group, which is fine. I've on enough committees. I do go to the Council of Deans and Directors as a representative, and I go to the Vice President's meetings, and I serve on the faculty issues where I sit and listen, and if they ask me questions, anybody who knows me knows that I am willing to give the opinion, but I represent the faculty, not my opinion, but the faculty. Dan Wolf has been working on our plan. We voted for it Tuesday because our president's retiring, and we want to get it in before he retires. It is a good process that we're learning how to deal with, and so we're really anxious to hear your questions and such. But I do serve on faculty issues with the system, with CFAC also. And you want me to hold this, Jen, because you're sick? I don't want to touch it after you touch it.
You can hold it for me. Sorry, I was sick yesterday. I'm Jen Schaefer from Lord Fairfax Community College, and I'm a member of CFAC as well. I'm on our faculty council at Lord Fairfax. And I'm an ad hoc member of the Faculty Evaluation Planning Work Group. Our chair, Bill Lewis, is here in the audience as well. We are in the process. We just sent our draft plan to all faculty for them to start to give us feedback. And we're hoping to have all faculty vote on our final plan by May. I'm happy to give you additional information about, who's on our work group and some of the caveats in our plan that are different from the model. If you all are interested in that type of thing, I think that's kind of what we're going to see here is the best use of this time in sharing information so that we can kind of see what the other colleges are doing.
So now we're going to turn it over to you. I'm going to ask you to do something that I did not do when you stand up, introduce yourself in your college. I'm from John Tyler Community College, and I want to note that Jen is co-chair of the Faculty Issues Subcommittee on CFAC, so she and Vicki have had a significant role in helping to represent faculty to the work group. But let us turn it over to you.
Questions? Give you a microphone before you speak. No.
Good morning. My name is Chicha Green. I'm from New River Community College, and I have the honor and privilege to work at our local development of the local faculty evaluation plan. My question is for Francis Leah. You mentioned that administrator HR is involved in the development of the localized plan for you. Could you comment on that a little bit more? To what extent are they involved and in this process of developing your own plan? Thank you.
Well, our plan, we have been meeting weekly since the past several months. And we meet weekly. The vice president, 2 academic deans serve on that committee. The vice president of finance serves on that committee and works very, very hard, and may I say very generously, on our rewards and recognition. So we have wonderful, we think, rewards and recognition that has been beautifully agreed to on funding. And the human resources, he has served with us, the head of HR has served on our committee and has worked on those issues that might be a part of HR questions. So we've had a lot of cooperation from the administration. However, our committee is, the majority of the members of the committee represent young and more senior faculty. I neglect to say old because I'm on that category. But so it's a broad representation of the academic disciplines and also of senior and relatively new faculty. They all attend. It has been an arduous
provide
process.
input.
Yes,
All right.
absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
I think I need a little bit more clarification. Max Cannon from J. Sargent Reynolds Community College. Am I to understand there is no uniform process for all of the community colleges for faculty evaluation?
So there is the new VCCS faculty evaluation system, and that is in policy. It is supported by a proposal document that went through 2 or 3 years of vetting and has background material. It is supported by a guidelines document to the colleges, notifying them of when you develop your college plan, you must have these elements. So all colleges will have certain elements. Then there was a model plan that was published that colleges could use if they wanted to. They could use the whole thing and not have to do anything locally, or they could modify it. They could take the model plan and adapt it, or colleges could develop their own.
Okay. Well, my question then that I have is, the longer you work at the community college, how do you feel about the process being a little bit more or a little bit less involved as you work and stay at your college, at the college? In other words, you may start out when you knew you have, I'm just going to sum it up, 10 sheets of paper to fill out. And as you stay there 10 years, they may go down to 4. And as you stay been there 17 or 20 years, you may have 3 because of the format is basically the same. But that's not how it works. And I'm wondering, have you considered looking at it that way?
Let me see if I can answer that. You tell me if I'm anywhere near close to your question, all right? That in one sense, the new policy does do that, in that if you're a multiple year faculty member, you're only evaluated formally at the end of your contract. So that while you have annual performance conversations and annual professional development objectives, and this is a little advertisement, so you know, my view of the professional development objectives are things that I want to work on, some of which, for professional development, but some of which are really designed to help me boost my final 5-year evaluation rating. I mean, that's how I plan on using it, and I think that's a good way to think about quality improvement. But my point is, getting back to it, is that multiple year people are only evaluated formally at the end of their contract. So that it does, while you do have paper, you may have more than 3 sheets of paper because you have 5 years worth of work, it does lighten that load. Does that answer your question at all?
Yeah, I was under the impression we were evaluated every year.
No, there's a performance conversation
Right now.
currently.
Right now, so it's 1%. Oh, right.
So if your 3-year contract, it's different depending on how long you've been there. It's more strict for faculty coming in, because really we want to make sure that the person we hired we're giving them a realistic preview in those first couple of years, and that we're getting a realistic preview and helping them succeed. So we make a strong decision. And I think there was a question in the back first, and then.
Hi, my question is, administrators come and go, okay? 5 years is a very long time. So I take it then that it is on us. What's that? Oh, sorry. I take it then it is on us to keep a very, very detailed account of what we have done, and then the administrator is supposed, if it's a new administrator, just supposed to take our word for it.
Well, actually, let me see if I can answer that question. One, I'm pleased that administrators come and go as a faculty member. Having said that, the answer is yes, it is incumbent on you. Part of the design of the new faculty evaluation system, and this was really something from the very beginning, and I have to give Vice Chancellor Early an immense amount of credit for it, that what he said and what the original work group said, and Francis was pretty close to the original work group, if not the original work group, that it was, let's respect the professionalism of faculty. And in a sense, let's look at what 4-year colleges and universities do and really put the responsibility for documenting what you do on faculty, because we all know as faculty members we do significantly more than we have in our little personnel files. And that by shifting it to faculty, then we give faculty a chance to really I don't want to say tout, but in my heart of hearts, I'm thinking tout. Tout what I do well and what I've done and why I am such a good faculty member and why I should be renewed.
Okay, a follow-on question, if you will. So let's say that I get a less than excellent or whatever the new thing is. Okay?
Meets or does not meet expectations are the two.
Let's say that I don't meet expectations. And I say fine. Is there a mechanism by which then I can request that I get reevaluated the very next year?
Okay, some of this is going to be in the college plan. Let me back up, and anybody on the panel or anyone who is involved, please feel free to cut me off at any time. Here's the system as I understand it. With faculty evaluations, there are a couple of things going on. First, let's think of it as a multiple year contract. Let me just pick a 5-year contract, a 5-year appointment really, just for illustration. That it's not that you're left go on your own for 5 years. Rather, what you're going to be having is you're going to be having annual performance conversations with your dean or academic supervisor, and there will be an informal review. And if you're slipping, or let's say, for example, what I want to do, and I guarantee you this is what I want to do, in my first professional development objectives, I want to return to the Master Teacher Seminar because I haven't been there in 15 years, and I'm sure I need remedial work. And I want to take at least 1 or 2 of the certifications for online teaching to vitalize, or, well, I'd like to think revitalize my web courses, but more likely vitalize my web courses. But my point being that performance conversation goes on every year. And so if my academic supervisor sees that I have, if I need additional work or additional technical expertise or what have you in a certain area, my annual performance conversation and my professional development objectives should be directed at remediating that problem if there is a problem, right? So much of this is designed to help avoid the problem that you're talking about. Should there be a problem, let's say at the end of 5 years, that for whatever reason there's a problem and you do not meet expectations, that's not over 1 year. That is over the entire 5-year period of your contract. It's not just one, it's one evaluation, but it's a summative evaluation that covers all 5 years of your performance. If you do not meet expectations in that summative evaluation, then there are a series of options for your college, including 1 year, an additional 1 year appointment to evaluate you to allow you to remediate and get back on track, if you will. And if I've misspoken, anyone on the committee is welcome to correct me. Does that help answer your question?
Yeah, that's exactly it, Paul. So if you do not meet expectations, it goes to your multi-year ad hoc advisory committee with a recommendation that you not receive another multi-year contract. You would then be on a 1-year contract. You would be evaluated at the end of that 1-year contract and receive a summative rating for that year.
It shouldn't come as a surprise. At the end of every year, you'll go through a performance plan with your supervisor, whoever that is. That becomes a part of your portfolio that will be presented at the end of that 5-year period. So no one should be surprised. I mean, it would be amazing if you had gone through this process, met with your deans, and at the end of that 5-year, you suddenly you didn't perform well, or you didn't meet expectations. So I think the annual performance plan is one in which you will develop and grow, and therefore it's almost, at the end of that 5-year period, you should not be surprised to receive meets expectations.
This isn't a question as much as a comment, because we've kicked around this idea of maintaining your portfolio over 5 years. What we decided to do at John Tyler is use a database or smart thinking or something. Anyway, something that we get a series of knowledge center, that's it. The Knowledge Center to design a series of query screens so that if you go to a meeting like this, you log it in. If you do something else, you log it in. When it comes up to evaluation, it'll prompt you with a series of questions. Do you have this? Do you have this? Do you have this? To help you build a portfolio. Because I've never built a portfolio in my life. I don't really know that I know how to do it. But anyway, the other idea about the database was then it would give our deans and supervisors a central repository as well, and so they would know where to go to look for stuff, and it'd be the same place throughout the whole college, kind of like when you use Windows. Regardless of the program, you always know to go open and close and edit, and the menus are always the same. And so we were looking at that as doing an online portfolio and managing it that way. So you don't have to always keep track of stuff over and over and over again. It does it for you.
That's a great idea, actually. I'd like to steal that if I may.
Skip Bottom, J. Sergeant Reynolds. I think one of the most interesting components of this is how student evaluations feed into it. Because student evaluations right now is a scale of 1 to 5, and right now we're switching to yes, no, pass or you fail. So I'd like the panel to discuss, if you will, how the students come into play when they're numerically evaluating you. Yet you got to transpose that at the end of 5 years into a yes-no. Plus, is the student evaluation part of your yearly visit with your dean?
So at Lord Fairfax, and Bill can jump in if I'm misstating anything, but we have a couple of issues with this as far as how we're tackling it. Right now, in our current system, full-time faculty choose a minimum of 3 courses over a calendar year that count for our evaluation. So right now we are not doing all sections, all courses every year. So that's a big shift for us anyway. But the way that we've tackled it in our work group is to use the 0 to 5 scale and come up with some number, 3.1, 3.3. We're still arguing what that number is going to be. But if you fell below that number, then that would be considered does not meet, doesn't make the threshold. And that's a pretty lowish number. I mean, it's fair. It's not even good. It's fair as far as the rating system goes on the 1 to 5 scale. Another caveat we've built in is if a faculty member on a multi-year contract falls below whatever that is, 3.1 or 3.3 on any given year with student evaluations, then that would trigger a classroom observation by the supervisor during the off year. So, that would be an additional mechanism to help keep somebody in check and make sure that, you don't go 5 years and then sit down with your dean and, find out, oh, you don't meet. It will not be a surprise to you. So that's another thing. Again, our faculty hasn't completely voted on the whole plan, so we're not sure if that's going to make it in the final version. Another thing with student evaluations that we have added in is the ability for a faculty member to designate, I think it's 1 course every semester. Is that right, Bill? 1 course every 2 courses. Okay. So 1-year contract, faculty can designate 1 course as an experimental course that would not count with your evaluation. So if you want to try something new and you're not sure how it's going to work and you don't want it to come back to bite you, then that would be your, fail-safe there. And then, as Bill said, people on multi-year contracts could designate 2 courses that would not count. So then you don't have to worry about, one set of bad evaluations bringing you down if you're trying something new, because part of this whole system is to get us to continually improve and be better teachers and experiment. So those are a couple of the things with Lord Fairfax that we're doing. I think Bill wants to chime in. Wait till you have it myself. Sorry.
One thing on the experimental classes is something that you have to choose ahead of time. I can't wait to see my results from student evaluations and then pick the low ones to be experimental courses. It has to be part of your professional development. So it's built into the system.
Like I said, we just adopted our plan, passed it, but the sticking point was we only do, right now, we do paper copies. And we choose a class, and our dean chooses a class for us in the fall. And in the policy, it said, I don't know if it's policy or model plan, said that we had to evaluate every class every semester. Well, like I said, we do paper copies, except for online class. And it's like, where are we going to store all this stuff? How are we going to do it? So now we have it in there that we will give our students the opportunity to evaluate all of our classes. So we're devising an online system for them to do this. The question, and I've listened to a lot of people say, how many of your students actually go and do that online survey? So if you get 5%, how good is that? So we're still playing with this. We're still going to give out those in the 2 classes, get that, and we'll store those somewhere for those of us on 5-year plans and do that type of thing, but still give them the opportunity to do the online and have those. And so we're having to tweak it. And again, you have to build into your plan a safeguard where in 2 years you reevaluate the plan to look at what works and what needs looking at and maybe changing in 2 years. Because this is all trial and error right now. And I'm going to get caught in the first year of being evaluated because my 5 years is up. So I'm the guinea pig. I feel like I'm being skewered. But it's okay. I let's not even go there. Yeah. But it's okay. Yeah, that's true. We're going to find out, and it's okay. We'll see where it works and where we need to change things. So, but it's that was, I didn't see that part. Francis pointed that out to me about having to evaluate every class every semester. And we have 3 divisions, and we found two divisions do it one way, but the developmental division, because their classes meet every 4 weeks, they do it totally differently because of the every 4-week type of thing. So, you know, we're having to make adjustments that way. And it's going to be an adjustment. That was a good question. We at Humana somewhat struggled with that. And in fact, we have a student evaluation committee. So, you know, that survey that looks at the survey, we are re-examining so that the survey will more closely align with the 4 domains in the new model plan. And so ours is going to take some tweaking, but I will say that we give all classes are surveyed every semester, but it is an online, and we are dealing with very, very low response rates. And as all of you know, low response rates are not necessarily they're not necessarily an accurate evaluation of that class. But I do think that one of the things we are strongly looking at is a more holistic approach, not a numeric approach to those student evaluations. So what we're looking for in the students' evaluations is more a direction, is more an area for correction than it is a number. Because those numbers, unless you've weighted the criteria, I mean, you can go through a whole process, they don't have something.
Don, well, let me just follow up really quickly on what you were saying, Francis. First off, I think Germana is to be commended for recognizing that, oh, the evaluation system has changed. We need to make sure that our student evaluation is lining up with that. This is an incredibly important issue for the Chancellor. He talks about student evaluations on every conference call with the work group, and he's mentioned it in every CPAC meeting recently. He thinks that they're very, very important. But I think a couple of folks here noted some possible potential pitfalls, some concerns. Low response rate is a significant concern. And just my own opinion on this would be, to respond to Jen, if I may, the number, like setting a number, that makes me nervous, and it seems to me a little bit arbitrary. You are welcome to do that as a college. I will note, though, that the model plan takes a holistic approach and a preponderance of evidence approach. And so they're not saying, you had mentioned fair. I think, you know, when you're lowering that standard to fair, that's not what the Chancellor is talking about. The Chancellor is not saying we want fair teachers in the classroom. So when you tie that number, you really shackle both the supervisor and the faculty member. And I personally don't believe that that number captures the information that we needed to capture.
Patrick, could I make a comment on that? You know, we've talked about a holistic approach, but I think some of us get very nervous when we see student evaluation. Like, I'm going to give that faculty member a grade, and it's A, B, or C, or D, or, you know, go away and never come back. But, you know, perhaps we need to rethink student evaluation and not call it evaluation. It's student input. It's student observations. And if we look at it in that respect, I think maybe we might get more valuable input.
Okay, Don Gorell, Northern Virginia Community College. I've got 2 questions. First, for the multi-year appointment, does that one evaluation carry over for 5 years of rewards and recognition? And or so if you do it well, you've got 5 years of extra bonuses?
May I answer that question?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay, so that means
until your next
so the question is, are those, once you're eligible, do you get the same reward for the next 5 years, or how does that relate? Okay. The second question is, I'm worried about portfolios. I don't want them to, whatever they are, whatever form they take, that I don't want having a portfolio to substitute for actual work. Has that been discussed?
Yes, well, I know it has at Eastern Shore, and the President and I both said that we don't want to weigh the portfolios. as a way of determining whether the faculty have been active. And in fact, that having had to do a portfolio myself at another institution and have read portfolios from other institutions of faculty members, that I look at what, just as you do, I look at what people include in their documentation. Who has ever been on the ad hoc retention promotion committee at your college and will admit to it? And do you look at like what people put in as activities and evaluate the activities as substantive, non-substantive, or mere paper? And I do. I know I do. And I think that's the same thing with portfolios. That as you develop a portfolio, and it will be a learning process, at least at our college for the faculty, that I want to include the important substantive issues. If I go to if I have a webinar, for no offense to this being streamed, but if I go to one of the publishers' webinars, I log in, I sit through, I listen to some people talk, I click off, I'm done. I won't include that in my portfolio at all. Does that answer your question at all?
Sort of, I guess. So the thing is, if someone doesn't submit a portfolio, if they have that option, but they're doing excellent, committee work, excellent teaching, and so on, does that mean they're not eligible for rewards and recognition? You have to do extra effort simply to be eligible.
Two answers. First, the faculty member must document what they're doing. They cannot, I did a lot of professional development over the last 5 years. What was that? Well, it was a lot. No, that's not going to work. And two, reward and recognition. Faculty are expected to do good service every day. And my experience, particularly at CFAC and getting to know so many faculty across the VCCS, I'm amazed by what faculty do every day. A good colleague of mine had noted that in the ordinary can be found the extraordinary. And I think we see that quite a bit. But reward and recognition is for above that. It's for outstanding service. So we know faculty are doing good work. Who are the stars? And they should be rewarded.
And you should have the opportunity to make the case that you are the star.
I wanted to follow up on what you said about the evaluations, the student evaluations and the cutoff score, because I think that's an issue that a lot of colleges are going to struggle with. And I know since I've been at Lord Fairfax, we've had really good administrators, but the horror stories from some of my colleagues who have been there much longer than I have, the mantra at our school is to plan for the administrator you don't want. So when we come up with these things, having a cutoff, whether it's 3.1, whether it's 3.3, whether it's 3.7, whatever it ends up being on the scale of, poor to excellent on the student evaluation, takes the mystery out of there. It takes away the ability for some supervisor who came in the last 2 years who really doesn't know what I do as a teacher to be able to say, well, these evaluations really don't meet expectations, but what meets expectations is not clearly defined. So tying it to that number is our way of taking the gray out of it so that we know what we need to do to meet expectations, and then that helps protect us from the administrator we don't want to have. We're very happy with who we do have at Lord Fairfax. But, this system's going to be around for a while, so that's a real concern. So trying to take the gray out, take the mystery out, make it, not subjective, but, a set number is our rationale there.
I'm Dennis Avery from PVC, and I just want a quick clarification, if I may, of something that was said earlier, because I want to make back to my colleague, Sophia. You mentioned earlier in response to the question back here the issue of after a multi-year contract, if one is, and I fully agree that it would be a surprise if one all of a sudden ended up receiving a does not meet expectations. But independent of that, just a clarification, I believe, if I understand my colleagues at PVCC correctly, that their understanding is that it is not, in effect, college prerogative what occurs after that does not meet expectations, that it is statewide mandate that it goes back to a 1 year. Am I wrong about that?
Thank you for that question. So the original intention in the work group as they worked on it would be that the faculty member would automatically revert to a 1-year contract. However, that's not in keeping with our multi-year policy in the Virginia Community College system. And so multi-year faculty have their materials reviewed by the multi-year appointment committee, and then it's forwarded to the president. I would expect in the vast majority of those cases, does not meet should be very, very, very rare, and it probably is going to be an egregious case. And when I was on the multi-year committee, my colleagues are very, they're setting high standards, and so I would expect that the likelihood of that one-year contract, that one-year appointment occurring is probably pretty high, but current policy, multi-year faculty do not automatically revert to a one-year contract. It must be reviewed by the committee.
The evaluation meets or does not meet is what's being reviewed, just so you know.
Hi, Don Taylor from Blue Ridge, and our faculty really didn't have a lot of heartburn over changing the process and everything, but there's one thing that really did bring them a lot of heartburn. I was wondering if you as the committee could really give us some clarification on that, and that was on the reward and recognition program. We understand the recognition part and think that's a very meritorious thing to do and to really recognize outstanding faculty. However, on the reward part, where you're mandating that we would set aside monetary rewards, we felt that that would create a huge divisiveness in there. Matter of fact, our entire faculty senate voted against it, and then we were told that we were mandated to come up with a program to create the reward part of it. And we're just really struggling to understand why, in that situation, why the committee or chancellor chose to ask us to reward certain colleagues with monetary rewards, whereas certain other colleagues possibly do not get them. And what was the justification behind that? And do you have any suggestions of how we could do that in a way that wouldn't seem like merit pay?
I will at least tell you what we've done at Germanna. We have followed more or less the model plan recommendations, but we have a series of $1,000 awards in each of the 4 categories. And any faculty member is eligible who has met expectations, is eligible for these awards. They could be recommended, the faculty member could be recommended by students, by administrators, by anyone in the college who has seen their, what they've been doing. And then it would be reviewed by an ad hoc awards committee who would review the applications for the various awards each year.
I was going to defer to Patrick on that one.
I'm a good person to defer to on this. Remind me of your name, please. Don. I'm a great person to defer to on that because I share your concern. My colleague from John Tyler, Teresa Beyer, and I had this concern when it was first mooted. And interestingly, Teresa Beyer is now chairing the Reward and Recognition Committee at John Tyler. She's doing a hell of a job. And Blue Ridge, I think, has done a hell of a job with that reward component. I saw a draft of the plan, and I think that the approach that you've taken is novel and interesting. Chris Lee helped me see this in a very different way. He's the Vice Chancellor for Human Resources at the VCCS. And we were on a conference call at one point, and he says, it is amazing that this reward and recognition system is in policy. And I said, what do you mean? He said, all kinds of organizations have reward and recognition. It is very rare for an organization to say it is policy that people should be rewarded. The philosophy of the chancellor and the philosophy of the work group based on experience and a lot of research is that people should be rewarded when they do extraordinary things. And the reward program is designed to reward. Some colleges reward, they'll have 200 faculty on their staff and they reward one person a year. There are a lot more people doing a lot of great things, and that should be recognized. And so in this climate where we have not had a raise for 5 years, this is an opportunity for someone to get a little bit of cash or to get some sort of recognition or to have opportunities for professional development as Blue Ridge has done. So I still have mixed feelings about it, Don, but that's where the thinking is coming from in terms of the chancellor and the work group and setting up the three-tier system or the three-legged.
Good morning. Thanks for doing this, because I think a lot of us feel like we're a little silent thing and not know what each other's doing, and that kind of precludes the question. Would there be a way to put out on the web the different proposals that have been vetted? Because we've heard that there's been several that have been put out and the chancellor said this dog don't hunt. So is there a way to get that out there so we don't repeat the same mistakes? And secondly, I think we're leaning towards just letting it go the first year and learning a little bit, hoping that we can, if we want to change it. This isn't an absolute, that if you don't come up with a plan this year, you could still come up with a plan next year. So can we make it more transparent? Because you all have done a really good job of making it transparent, but I think everybody's out kind of doing its own thing, and some's working sometimes.
I want to provide two answers. I'm going to ask Jen to talk about the second one. And the first one is on what the system is doing. And all of the approved plans will be published on the website. The model plan is out there, so that is an approved plan you can take a look at. But we in CFAC try to do a lot of communication. And I want to ask Jen and Vicki, because you've been on that subcommittee, to talk about what CFAC is trying to do in terms of communication.
Well, the Faculty Issues Subcommittee of CFAC was concerned about exactly what you said. How can we learn from each other? How can we, benefit from somebody else's draft, because it's a lot easier to modify something that's a starting point than to start from scratch. And the consensus was that the CFAC reps should be kind of the conduit to share these things, and some colleges are comfortable sharing at different stages than others. We at Lord Fairfax didn't want to share anything until all of our faculty had seen it. So, depending on where you are at what stage in the game, I do think that sharing the plans is going to be beneficial. I know I got to see Blue Ridge's when it was submitted, and Virginia Highlands, and we have used pieces of those plans to, model ours on. As far as seeing them before they're approved, I don't know that there's any mechanism for that at this point. Do you know?
Not a mechanism at the system level, because the system wants to represent certified plans. But CFAC and the work that you two have done, there is some sort of mechanism.
Yeah, like we said, we've been discussing and been emailing each other and such, and we did look at Blue Ridge's plan, and honestly, going to that rubrics, I kid you not, we took that rubrics and we checked off each point. We have this, and this. And honestly, committee, if you look at it, we have all those points. And it's just, yeah. You're going to be hard-pressed to tell me we don't have those points. I mean, it's just like if I give something like that to my faculty, my students, you must have this, and this, and they have that sheet ahead of time. That's what we went by. I'll tell you, I'm really strict like that. And so that's what we did. But we've been communicating with each other. I mean, with ASAC, they went out. The Ridge's plan was not supposed to be sent out. Well, that's okay. I'd already had it before it was sent out. Yeah, that's sneaky. So, yeah, and I know you have a question.
The only thing I would say about that, we try to be really efficient. We've been working on it since last year. It would have been nice when the model plan came out for that checklist to come out right then. And after the fact was sort of, because I know we're missing a couple things.
Yeah, I know. I had nothing to do with it.
I will note that CFAC, there were regional conference calls with CFAC representatives and representatives from the colleges, and the colleges knew that checklist was coming out. The checklist was at the request of CFAC. They said, we'd like a checklist. And we couldn't send one out immediately because we had to make sure that checklist was accurate, and that when you submit the plan, when you use that checklist, you can have confidence that when you submit the plan, you're going to be approved if you hit the items on that checklist. So I think they were just two calendars that unfortunately overlapped.
Well, we were just, our president really wanted us to be hop on top because he didn't want to go into the next year when we're going up for approval for SAC. So we hit a heavy-duty deadline ahead of time. And so when the checklist came out, because of those, because I was on those webinars or whatever, the conference calls, it just it seemed like reactionary at that point to send the checklist when the rubric and all that. Really, it would have been nice to have that ahead of time to be able to check all those documents. I agree with you, Vicki, on that, because if you go down through that checklist, that is quite helpful.
And actually, just a quick second, just to go back, that one of the reasons why we're having this discussion right now is that in CFAC and faculty issues, the faculty issues subcommittee, we thought that, in fact, people may be feeling siloed, and this was a great place to have questions and answers. Please, you'll notice how little we've actually presented. It really has been a question and answer period, and I think that's part of what CFAC is all about and trying to do. I'll stop there.
I'm Tom Sigmund from Calworth Community College, and we're working on our version of that plan right now. I think it's coming along pretty well. I don't think we're going to make that August deadline. I think we're probably going to be using the model plan for the fall semester. I think we'll be ready to move on our plan probably in January or so. But I tell you, one thing that we actually work on for a while, and we think we got it, and then we kind of move ahead, and then we realize, no, I don't think we got it. We kind of keep coming back to this one little vague phrase in there, and that has to do with the 10 to 25%. 10 to 25% of faculty must receive monetary award. And then a little further on, it says in there that it is expected that a larger number of awards be given out. So we've got 375 full-time faculty, and we're focusing on that 10% number thing, in terms of awards, because that's 40 awards, and we thought that was a ton of awards. So we're trying to figure out, in terms of numbers, how many are rewards and how many are awards. We're kind of focusing on 10%. We had thought at some point in time, well, does that mean that 6% need to be reward and 4% need to be awards and 4% need to be rewards? How are you guys doing it?
So you accurately represent the information that's provided on the checklist. It's recommended that between 10 to 25%. At Eastern Shore, if you gave a reward to 40 faculty, you would have to give each faculty 4 awards. But when you're talking about 400 faculty, then 37 awards is fewer than 10%. So it's a big N, but it's a small percent. The colleges have some latitude there, and I would suggest to you that you work it with your culture, and if you're going to move out of the 10 to 25% range, that you note that and the reason for that. Recognition must be more common than reward. People do great things every day, and it's nice to get that pat on the back. I was fortunate this past week that I got a recognition from the committee that is putting together the reward and recognition plan, and it was a de minimis recognition, which was a certificate recognizing me for my contributions to the reward and recognition plan. But that wasn't the real, that wasn't the reward part. The reward part was prosciutto. It was a de minimis prosciutto award that is not taxable under IRS regulations. Turkey and ham. So, but people you should be recognizing more of your faculty each year, and some faculty, I think you can correct me, I think some faculty can be recognized more than once a year. They can do 3, 4, 5 things in a year that are worthy of recognition that are not maybe at that award.
Well, let me clarify something. We are going to add some faculty. So we had put a certain number in for the rewards, and then when we were told we were getting some more faculty, we had to change the number for the rewards. And so we're going to give, I think, 6 of the rewards, and then we had to lower the amount we're going to give them, but we tied it to professional development that they have to use it so it will enhance the classroom. And then they have to tell us how they used it. Well, then when it came to the awards or the recognition, we had to do more. We had to we doubled that because we have like 4 or 5 categories there. And they're going to get a certificate, and they may get something from the bookstore, but it's a de minimis type thing. It won't be, money. But we doubled those, so there will be more of those. There'll be like 6 of one, and there'll be like 8 of the other, just so it will be more, but it will still be that 10 to whatever percent. And that's how we did it. We just used math, and we said we have so many. We don't have 400 full-time faculty. I think we've got like 60 coming up, so that was pretty simple for us. But that's how we did it. We just said we have so many full-time faculty, 10 to 25% have to be in the rewards, and you just have to have more given recognition than you do rewards.
So then I'm thinking if we have, we're looking at the 10 to 25% rewards, it says monetary, must receive a monetary reward. Right. So it doesn't say big or small. It just says a monetary reward.
Yeah, monetary.
All right. So
if the money's available, that's the kicker that they.
So if we're focusing on 10%, that's telling me that 40-some faculty must receive some monetary reward.
Monetary.
Right.
And if you do that 40, then of the recognition, you have to have more than 40 to get recognition.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
so we're still talking percents. We're thinking, okay,
you're still talking percent.
We could still say 6% of the 40 get big, and 4% or get the awards, and 4% get
the rewards.
The big. So that would work then. That formula.
You got to have 10 to 25% who get the money.
Well, and what if we're assuming that awards are also money?
No, the rewards have to be the money. It's the recognition that's the minimus.
Okay.
That's not money.
All right.
But you still got to put that tax statement in there.
Okay, just very quickly, don't forget, built into your plan must be a review process. And so I think in the model plan it's every 2 years, but I'm not sure, I don't remember. But I know I want to, I'm not trying to drag out the misery, but every year, I mean, when we get it in place, the first thing I want to do early next spring is review the plan that we have. So maybe 40, well, for us it would be actually more than 2 per person, but to go back and review that so that we can tinker with it to make it right.
I'm Donna Levy, J. Sargent Reynolds. I'm the Faculty Senate President. I'm also the chair of the Faculty Evaluation Committee, and I'm also the program chair of this, New Horizons. And I do want to tell you that we solicited Patrick for this because this is important enough, and it had to be live streamed. So we had to have this here. The question that my Faculty Senate laughed, by the way, we want a lottery system. If we got the meets expectations, there's a pool of money and everybody gets the same share because we can't break it. But anyway, my question to you is, we're getting something different. What are the deans getting to review this? Because the deans, especially the ones that don't come and go as quickly as we'd like, need to be trained on how this review is different, especially with the multi-year. And so we were thinking on our committee that there has to be some sort of training for the deans actually to look at this. But I don't see that in the...
It is not in the plan, but actually Vice Chancellor Lee has spoken about the need to train the academic supervisors on how to use the plan and evaluate. And I believe that starts this summer.
Yes, thank you for the question and the comment, Paul, and Vicki's been involved with that with ASAC, because it's let's not take the bad dean as the example. Let's take the good dean as the example. That doesn't mean that person has been trained and understands how to appropriately and effectively and positively evaluate folks. This has been a great session. We're going to wrap it up here, and I'd like to do that by just going back through the panel and get a final comment, and then I'll conclude it. And so we'll start with Jen. Do you have anything final that you want to say?
If you have any questions about the Lord Fairfax plan, you can just contact me. You can find me right after the session, and I'll give you my email, and I'll share what I can.
Thanks, Jen.
And I know there are other concerns about, like, first-year faculty, about that we need to develop them more instead of possibly holding their feet to the fire, and I understand that. You just need to make sure that your dean helps develop them.
and again, it's a process, and we need to reevaluate stuff. But feel free to contact me. It's the place to be.
Thank you, Vicki.
Can't follow that, Vicki. But anyway, thank you very much for being here, and I think we're all ready to answer questions or share what we've done. And please, in the next day or so, please catch us in the hall and ask the questions.
Thank you, Francis.
And technically, that I'm the liaison for Tidewater, Thomas Nelson, and Paul DeCamp. And so for those colleges in particular, if I can help in any way, please do not hesitate to call or email me. And for all the rest of you, of course, I mean, I'm happy to help in any way I can.
Thanks, Paul. Thank you again so much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. And just to sort of reiterate what they're saying, I want to remind you that there's a CFAC session right after this. Also, you should know who your CFAC representative is, and if you do not know, you should find out. Those folks have been very involved in this process all the way along. And finally, each college has a liaison on the work group that is there to answer questions by phone, by email, by chat, whatever the case may be. Thanks again very much. Have a great day, folks.